I'll just...
And we're here to present about Boston Beer Company and its ultimate entry into the seltzer market. Boston Beer Company was founded in 1984 by Jim Koch, who targeted his products towards younger, more affluent drinkers who wanted more flavor. Koch made a few key decisions in the company's history that set it up for success, perhaps none as important as its use of contract manufacturers. The company took advantage of excess capacity in the industry and was able to avoid investing heavily in its own production facility by utilizing 5 contract manufacturers to produce its products. Sam determined that the company could differentiate itself on flavor, as many larger U.S. breweries had a similar taste profile. The company invested heavily in its ingredients and its processes, and then invested significantly in marketing dollars to ensure the public was aware of the higher quality of its main product, the Samuel Adams Boston Lager. As a result, Sam had advantages over its domestic competitors due to production flexibility and product quality, and it had advantages over its international competitors due to freshness and cost advantages of lower transportation and import charges. Unsurprisingly, the success of Sam led to many copycats. Small regional players entered the craft brewery markets, but so too did major competitors like Anheuser-Busch, Miller, and Coors. In 1997, Sam moved away from its strictly contract manufacturing strategy in order to bring some of its production in-house. The company purchased a brewery in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Sam began manufacturing most of its beer. By 2015, Sam was the 5th largest brewery in the world, and the company was valued at more than $3 billion. After growing double digits in 9 of 10 years, Sam's sales grew by just 6% in 2015 and declined by 5% in 2016. Sam had avoided launching an IPA product for years, as Koch, the company's founder, personally wanted the company to avoid IPA products. He didn't like the flavor, and he says that the company does not launch a new product unless he likes the taste. IPAs accounted for 25% of craft beer sales in 2015, and companies like Lagunitas took advantage of the opportunity. Eventually, Sam responded to the growing IPA opportunity by launching the Rebel IPA and the Rebel Rouser Double IPA. Koch has always been hesitant as a founder to enter adjacent categories because he's always viewed Sam as a beer company. But in 2016, Koch became more amenable to adjacent product categories, and Sam launched Truly Spiked and Sparkling, a spiked seltzer product, to add to its line of products, which included Sam Adams, Dogfish, and Twisted Tea.
The truth is that Boston Beer Co. entered the hard seltzer market because a team produced the drink, and after a 20-state introduction, sales were doing pretty well. And then the market just exploded. Market growth was really fueled by a consumer focus on healthier, lower calorie alcoholic beverages, as well as a decades-long steady rise in non-alcoholic carbonated water sales. These trends coincided to really drive the market to what's now a $2.5 billion market that's expected to continue to grow at nearly a 20% CAGR. The market, as we see, is currently dominated by White Claw, which has only increased its share over time, and to a lesser extent, Truly. But there is an increasingly competitive tail of producers. And market share estimates aren't exactly available for all producers from 2020, but Truly was instrumental in driving Boston Beer Co.'s top line growth by almost 40% year over year. Truly generated triple-digit volume growth in 2020 despite this increased competitive entry, and it was also the only national hard seltzer not introduced in 2020 to grow share. So on the next page, we assess the attractiveness and profitability of the hard seltzer market through a Porter's 5 Forces analysis. In particular, the severe threats, first is competition. As mentioned, White Claw dominates the market and Truly is the clear number 2 player. But the looming giant AB InBev is investing significantly in the space with $1 billion on its hard seltzer production in 21 and 22 to launch numerous seltzers across price points and by leveraging its existing popular brands like Bud Light and Michelob. The threat of new entrants is also quite high, while the required capital investment does drag down margins, as we see with Boston Beer Co., and should present a bit of a barrier. The market growth is just so attractive, and it's quite easy to leverage adjacent brands that you've got a lot of established players trying to enter the market. For example, Coca-Cola has announced that the company will enter the hard seltzer market in 2021. The threat of substitutes is fairly high, but we don't think it's as critical of a threat just yet. There's such strong demand in this category, and many producers such as Constellation Brands and its Corona Seltzer have experienced significant production shortages. Additionally, many of the other beer adjacent substitutes like canned cocktails just have never really caught on like these products have. So upon reflection, this is very clearly a tough market, but the growth is incredibly attractive, and Boston Beer Co. has a strong existing foothold thanks to what's really a pretty fortuitous early entry. So it isn't going to give up on a product category that's giving it so much of its growth. So the question becomes, how can it create and sustain a competitive advantage?
Thanks, Noah. Sam has done things differently since its inception, whether that's using higher quality inputs, advertising on a more local targeted scale, investing in packaging capabilities, or distributing more on the off-premise basis. Two things I'd like to focus on here are its manufacturing, its focus on contract manufacturers, and its branding, experimenting with new brands to find those new consumers. On the next slide, we can see contract manufacturing compared between Sam, ABI, and Molson Coors. While the other two players use primarily in-house manufacturing, relying on economies of scale to produce large quantities of beer cheaply, Sam has a big presence of external manufacturers, which allows it to react more quickly to consumer demand. You can see in 2016, when they launched Truly, they released a press release saying they wanted to go after this market because of the growth in consumption of carbonated bottled water and an overall interest in low-calorie alcoholic beverages. You can also see Sam's continuous experimentation through its previous product releases, starting in 2001 with Twisted Tea and continuing up until earlier this year with the launch of Truly Iced Tea. They've released innovative new products every few years. Now on the next slide, we can also take a look at how Sam has avoided cannibalizing its own sales. You can see from 2016 to 2020, craft beer, which was the company's stronghold, has fallen as a percent of revenue down to only 15%. However, these sales haven't been falling. They've largely been flat or growing less quickly. However, due to the huge growth, Truly has increased to be almost half of Sam's portfolio. But where are those drinkers coming from? Well, on the right, you can see only 22% are coming from craft beer and import beer, which is Sam's traditional stronghold. The rest, almost 75%, are coming from wine, spirit drinks, and domestic beer, meaning these are net new customers to Sam's portfolio. Contrast that to Bud Light Seltzer, with 35% coming from domestic beer. This is probably Bud Light drinkers transitioning to Bud Light Seltzer and a cannibalization of the company's own products. Now, these are two areas where Sam has really been successful in seltzer, and we think can launch them into the next stage, which I'll let Andy talk about.
Thanks, George. Now we'll think to the future and how Sam is positioned going forward. We'll look at factors that drive consumer purchasing decisions, relative market uncertainty, and distribution choices. Starting with consumer choice, data shows that taste and flavor variety are the top two reasons for selection of a specific hard seltzer product. Here, Sam has an advantage given their experience and expertise in developing unique flavors for the craft beer market, as well as their advanced understanding of the hard seltzer market. They have demonstrated through the launch of Truly Seltzer and then Lemonade and Tea that they can create products that appeal to consumers on these metrics. Further, we see secondary effects from networks and brand loyalty, meaning that getting the taste right allows one to capitalize on repeat customers. Next, we show the relative youth of seltzer versus light beer in terms of customer penetration. While hard seltzer has grown rapidly, there's still significant uncertainty over its long-term trajectory. Here again, we see a relative advantage for Sam in their usage of contract manufacturing and their history of quick responses to emerging flavor trends. While the cost of third-party manufacturing is higher than what Sam could achieve with in-house production at efficient scale, outsourcing provides a real option to quickly respond to trends in flavors and packaging styles versus in-house options. Finally, we consider the future of distribution. Sam is specialized in off-premise channels, but market forecasts suggest the growth in on-premise over the next 5 years will be roughly double that of off-premise. However, in absolute dollars, it's expected that off-premise will be roughly three times the size of on-premise. Additionally, the unit economics of on-premise include higher costs for canned versus keg beverages, which is further amplified by a product with many flavor variations. Moving to the next slide, we conclude with general recommendations based on our analysis. First, Sam should continue to capitalize on its expertise in product and flavor development to continue to win new customers. They can also leverage the M&A experience gained in the craft beer segment to acquire rising stars in the category. Next, Sam should continue to make use of the real option provided by third-party manufacturing for hard seltzer production, preserving in-house capacity for their staple brands with more predictable demand. We can see how this is complementary with the first recommendation. In a trend-driven market, flexible manufacturing is more valuable to a firm that has the expertise to capitalize quickly on those trends. This, beyond just the hard seltzer market, will allow SAM to continually compete effectively as new beverage categories emerge. Finally, we recommend that SAM continue to be selective about where to compete, forgoing the on-premise category in favor of maintaining their dominance in off-premise distribution. This will allow them to access the vast majority of the projected hard seltzer category, while second movers aim to solve the unique on-premise challenges presented by hard seltzers. With that, we conclude our analysis of Sam Adams and the hard seltzer category, and we welcome any questions you have. Thank you.